The San Diego tank rampage remains one of the most bizarre and chaotic events in modern American history. On May 17, 1995, a military veteran named Shawn Nelson stole an M60 Patton tank from a National Guard armory and took it on a destructive rampage through the streets of San Diego, California. For nearly 30 minutes, Nelson wreaked havoc, crushing cars, fire hydrants, and utility poles, while police scrambled to stop a vehicle that seemed unstoppable. The incident ended in tragedy, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a city grappling with questions about how and why it happened. In this episode, we'll explore the details of that chaotic day, the life of Shawn Nelson, the aftermath of the rampage, and its lasting impact. This is the story of the San Diego tank rampage. To understand the tank rampage, we must first understand the man behind it. Shawn Timothy Nelson was born on August 21, 1959, in San Diego, California. A U.S. Army veteran, Nelson served 2 years of active duty before being honorably discharged in 1980. After his military service, Nelson worked as a plumber and led what many described as a fairly ordinary life. However, by the mid-1990s, his life had taken a downward spiral. Nelson's marriage ended in divorce, and his plumbing business failed. He suffered from chronic back pain due to an accident and was addicted to methamphetamine. Financial troubles mounted, and he faced eviction from his home. Friends and family described him as increasingly paranoid and disillusioned, often ranting about government conspiracies. Nelson's mental health and personal struggles created a volatile combination, setting the stage for the events of May 17, 1995. On the afternoon of May 17, 1995, Shawn Nelson made his way to the California Army National Guard Armory in Kearny Mesa, San Diego. The facility housed several decommissioned military vehicles, including tanks. Remarkably, the armory's gate was left open, and security was minimal. Nelson entered the facility without resistance and climbed into an M60 Patton tank, a 57-ton vehicle designed for combat. Despite having no formal training on how to operate a tank, Nelson managed to start the engine. It's worth noting that the tanks at the armory were supposed to be non-operational, with their main weapons deactivated. However, the tank Nelson commandeered was still drivable, a glaring oversight that would soon have catastrophic consequences. As Nelson drove the tank out of the armory and onto the streets of San Diego, chaos erupted. Police were alerted, but they faced an unprecedented challenge. How do you stop a 57-ton tank? Shawn Nelson's tank rampage began on Convoy Street, a major thoroughfare in San Diego. From the outset, his intentions appeared to be purely destructive. He targeted civilian infrastructure, driving the tank through traffic lights, fire hydrants, and utility poles. Cars parked along the street were crushed under the tank's massive treads. The destruction escalated as Nelson entered residential neighborhoods. Power outages occurred as he tore down electrical poles, and water flooded the streets from broken hydrants. Residents watched in horror as the tank barreled through their neighborhoods, seemingly unstoppable. Police cars pursued the tank, but their efforts were futile. Bullets were ineffective against its thick armor, and roadblocks were easily demolished. The situation was so unprecedented that law enforcement had no standard protocol for dealing with such a threat. At one point, Nelson attempted to cross Interstate 805, creating a potentially catastrophic scenario. Fortunately, he became stuck on the concrete median, which temporarily halted his path of destruction. However, Nelson managed to free the tank and continue his rampage. The rampage finally came to an end when Nelson attempted to drive the tank over a concrete barrier near a residential area. The tank became stuck, one of its tracks immobilized by the obstruction. This gave the police the opportunity they desperately needed. Officers from the San Diego Police Department climbed onto the tank and opened its hatch. Inside, they found Nelson, who refused to surrender. Fearing further destruction and potential loss of life, officers made the decision to use lethal force. Nelson was shot and killed inside the tank, bringing the rampage to a tragic conclusion. The entire event lasted approximately 30 minutes, but the aftermath left the city reeling. The destruction caused by the tank rampage was staggering. Over a dozen vehicles were crushed, and significant damage was done to public infrastructure, including downed power lines and ruptured water mains. The financial cost of the rampage was estimated at hundreds of thousands of dollars. In the days following the incident, questions arose about how such a tragedy could have occurred. How was Nelson able to access the armory so easily? Why were the tanks not more securely stored? The National Guard faced intense scrutiny, and security protocols at military facilities across the country were reviewed and tightened. The event also sparked discussions about mental health and addiction. Nelson's struggles were well documented, and many saw the rampage as a tragic culmination of his personal and societal failures. It highlighted the need for better mental health resources and support for veterans facing similar challenges. Nearly 3 decades later, the San Diego tank rampage remains a cautionary tale. It is a reminder of the devastating consequences of negligence, unchecked mental health struggles, and systemic failures. For the people of San Diego, the incident is etched into the city's history. It has been the subject of documentaries, news specials, and even fictional adaptations. While the event is often remembered for its surreal and almost cinematic nature, the underlying tragedy is never far from the surface. Shawn Nelson's story serves as a stark warning about the importance of addressing the root causes of personal and societal breakdowns. His rampage was not just an isolated act of destruction, but a symptom of deeper issues that continue to resonate today. The San Diego tank rampage is one of the most unique and devastating events in American history. It left a city in shock, raised questions about security and mental health, and highlighted the fragility of the systems meant to protect us. As we reflect on this tragic story, we are reminded of the human cost behind such incidents. Shawn Nelson's life, marred by hardship and despair, ended in a moment of chaos that forever changed a community. Thank you for joining me as we explored this extraordinary story. If you found this deep dive compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more explorations of history's most unusual and impactful events.